Εξομολογήστε το Κύριο διαγατός, αλληλούια, ότι στον αιώνα το έλεος αυτού, αλληλούια.
Your name is Christian. Who named you Christian, by the way?
Gnostic teacher, great Messiah. I want to be a Messiah one day.
Oh, you want to be a Messiah one day.
One of the chosen, yeah.
So which, you were telling me about different schools of Gnosticism, right?
Yeah.
So Gnosticism
Revealed Gnosis,
is,
everyone. Not a new channel, but Revealed Gnosis. Great place to learn about all kinds of...
it's kind of loud here. Can you move over there, please? Because it's very loud behind me.
Michael Manley, like, you know Michael Manley? What's your flag?
It's not very quiet.
What did he say that you're...
I don't want to scream and shout. So
No.
it's like, you can come close.
So we are recording, yeah?
He said, why?
Revealed Gnosis, new channel. Well, we'll be doing this a bit more from down the park, down Speaker's Corner here. Just having a little chill. Anyway, Gnosticism, again, there are over 40 types of different Gnostic schools in the 2nd century, right?
In the 2nd
and they
century.
were already well developed
Were they?
when church fathers began to talk about them.
Okay.
The Valentinians held up the Gospel of John and said, "This is our gospel." Marcion delivers the first gospel into the record, into the written record, with his Lucan, kind of proto-Lucan gospel. And lots of people are now looking at Luke, at his version of Luke, and saying it was the first one. And the Luke that came
Who's
after,
saying that?
canonical Luke.
Who's saying that? Are they Gnostics saying it, or are those
there
Christians
are a number of secular
saying
scholars.
it? Okay, secular scholars. Okay.
So secular scholars like
Like,
Marcus
do you have any
Vincent,
names?
Marcus Vincent, Mark Bilby,
Oh, okay.
Jack Bull.
right.
There's Kloppenberg as well.
So these are atheists, right?
No, not necessarily. Jack Bull is not an atheist. He's a Catholic.
He's a what?
He'd be a Catholic.
So the Catholic,
A guy called
He believes
David Litwer as well. Litwer's looking a lot at Marcion now and helping to augment our understanding of Marcion's gospel, because it's just one gospel, and it comes with 10 of the Pauline letters as well, excluding Timothy 1 and 2 and Titus. And it came at around 140-ish, 144. People are kind of converging on that date. This is the first time we hear any knowledge about a gospel. Remember, Paul says, "I have one gospel." And then this guy brings Paul's letters into the world. And Irenaeus even says against Marcion that Marcion found or discovered he discovered Galatians. So Marcion looks like he might have discovered Galatians. It's probable that he was closer to Christianity in his time than the subsequent fathers like Justin Martyr and Irenaeus, Tertullian.
and who's this guy? Sorry, Marcion?
Marcion, yeah.
Ah, okay.
Marcion of Synod.
And who was he like a student of, or like who was he
His
close to? What school
father-
of thought was he from?
No, he was just simply a Christian. He became known as the Marcionites were named after him.
Oh,
But he
really?
was a Christian in his time.
He was a Christian,
yes.
and define a Christian in this time then.
Someone who, it's interesting in that his theology tried to separate the Old Testament from the New. So he had, we've lost
Wait,
this-
but the Christians don't do that. If he was doing that, he couldn't be a Christian, could he?
That's right, he was a fairly innovative Christian. Of course, though, he was rejected.
It's like
by the
saying
church.
that Jehovah's Witnesses are Christians. They're just very innovative
He was
Christians.
rejected by the mainstream, like Roman Church.
Okay, rejected. Look,
Yeah.
so it's like why are we going there? Like when we either want to define Christians as people who believe that Jesus was God, He died for our sins and rose from the dead. These are Christians, according to the Christian definition of Christian.
Yeah. So
So people who are
Marcion
not
didn't believe that.
That's right. I would suppose he wouldn't. and then he wouldn't. You can't just like confuse the audience by calling
No,
somebody
I'm not
who's.
confusing anybody. I think what happened is people like Irenaeus came along and started really rabidly vying for his version of literal Christianity, and you can hear it in his
You
in
throw
his
these
words.
terms, literal Christianity.
Yeah.
Now you've thrown another term. That please define these terms.
Literalizing.
Yeah, what
the-
is literal Christianity?
taking the gospel accounts and making them and trying to make them fit into an historical context, which I have to tell you is really difficult to do.
Why?
They're contradictory.
Why?
They
Why?
don't appear to. Well, they're very contradictory. They
right.
don't appear in any kind of secular records. They don't appear to the
Don't
Romans.
anybody secular? You meaning
No.
like
The
the
Romans,
the
Jews,
Romans, the
yeah.
Titus? Was he a secular?
Titus,
Yeah, was he a
well,
secular?
Titus was
Historian.
the historian Titus, Tacitus.
Tacitus. I'm sorry.
Yeah, Tacitus is mentioned, and I'm actually going to go through this on my channel,
Yeah.
Revealed Gnosis, quite soon. Check it out. Tacitus and Josephus don't really appear to be talking about Jesus. And if you
Tacitus
read the,
and Josephus don't really appear to be talking about Jesus.
No,
All
that's
right.
right.
Now
I can
explain
prove
that,
this.
please.
And quite a few scholars have been able to really narrow down on what is actually said in Tacitus's annals and what Josephus is claimed to have said, and you look at it and it doesn't make sense.
Okay, these are just claims. When you say that they have historically, it has been established that they were talking about Jesus.
Not
Historically, I'm talking about historically, right? You have come across with an innovation here. There, you have revised. You're a revisionist. You're revising the traditional understanding of this. Now you're going to have the burden of proof of proofing it. So please don't just state it. You've stated it already. Now we have you on record saying this.
So
now you're going to prove it that that's the
Should we
case.
take Tacitus or should we take Josephus, because that's would be the only first century attestation of Jesus, right? And it is a clearer like Jesus who died, who rose on the third day, who had many followers, and Pilate is mentioned as well. There are a few problems with this, big ones actually. It's a very small quote. It appears to have been jammed into Josephus, his Antiquities, into a text that otherwise runs really fluidly and really neatly. So the preceding and proceeding lines, actually, if you read them, you can find these online very, very easily. If you read them together, they flow much easier. Another thing,
Sir,
Josephus's discourse
we all know
style
the
and his
issues
use of
there.
language.
Can you show me how you can prove that this, because you're making a big claim. A big claim requires a big evidence, right, to support it.
Sure.
You can't
The
just say,
Josephine discourse style is nothing like you find it in the Testimonium.
okay, this is not big, this is an old controversy.
Can I finish? I need to
Disputing the
finish.
old
I
controversy.
need to finish this.
All right.
He will otherwise go to great lengths explaining information about far lesser people if you take him at his word in this guy rose on the third day. He was called the Christ. He was the Christ, the Messiah. A Jew doesn't talk like this about someone who's professedly of a different religion. It just wouldn't happen like that. The mention of, people like Origen don't. They tell you that Josephus believed that Jesus wasn't the Messiah, which is a very clear and obvious fact that Origen had read these texts, but he couldn't find Josephus's this interpolation essentially into Josephus. You can look at it, the Testimonium doesn't crop up until Eusebius mentions it, where just before he mentions the Testimonium, and this is in 325, this is 300 odd years after this is supposed to have been written, he mentions it, and it has his wording in it. There are about 7 or 8 specific words that are used that are actually Eusebian words, or they are not found in Josephus in any of his writings. About 10 or so Christian fathers who existed between Josephus's time and Eusebius who read Josephus never mention the Testimonium Flavianum. This is a massive problem for its authenticity, huge problem. And the same is true for Tacitus's Annuals and his mention of Christus or Christus.
So let's talk about Tacitus's account. Yeah. Tell us about that.
So he mentions Christians or Christians.
Does he mention Jesus, and what is the context? Can you repeat? Can you give us a quote? What he said, Tacitus, about
I
Jesus?
can find one for you.
All right, go ahead, please. Go ahead.
Sure.
Because he said,
Yes.
he talks about Christians and that we, they follow this guy they thought he was God. So where did he get that from? If there were no Christians following Jesus as God.
Yeah, so, and again, this is the same for Tacitus. He mentions, what did he say there? Let's see, he mentions Pilate. I know what happened is actually someone wrote, most likely it was a guy called Sulpicius Severus, in about 400. You find the testimonium essentially in Sulpicius's words. He's writing in his...
So Tacitus is from the 4th century.
No. The person who basically wrote that script, whoever it was using Sulpicius Severus, and you see the dependency. And what happens is, we're talking, there are two references. One of them is a reference to Nero, using Christians as human torches. This is ahistorical. It doesn't appear to have been recorded by anyone in the 1st century, and it was found in the Middle Ages in Italy, I believe. Lyon, it might be Lyon. I'm going to find this for you. But the thing about Sulpicius's reference is it actually misses out the Pilate line. There's about 16 words, and Jesus and Pilate are not there in Sulpicius. What's probably happened is that someone has just written it in the Middle Ages, and it's the first time we find it in the record. So it's not. I'm almost there. I've got quite a lot of this. I'm just pulling this from my book, actually. So yeah, anyway, you'll be able to find this all very soon on my channel. But
we've been looking forward to that, because I think right now we're just going bits and pieces here and there, and you're not really sounding very coherent about your point.
No, I think I am.
These people are historical people that have done this historically.
Tacitus is
there are many other sources. I didn't come here, to show you the sources, but there are many sources from the 1st, 2nd century. There's Didache, there's all kinds of other stuff that's been written in the 1st century that we have access to.
Can I read? I'm going to read you a quote from Richard Carrier's work on the historicity of Jesus. It's a great book on this subject. It's peer-reviewed. It is real scholarship. And he writes regarding Tacitus's Annals, the line about Christ being executed by Pilate was added sometime after the mid-4th century. Before then, no one, Christian or non-Christian, had ever heard of any reference to Christians in Tacitus. This event is not mentioned even when 2nd century Christians told stories of Nero's persecuting Christians. Tacitus completed his Annuals before 117 CE, suggests the most likely chain of information was Christians telling Pliny about the Gospels, then Pliny telling Tacitus, and Tacitus then reporting what would be to him the most embarrassing.
Christian, you're reading this thing, which is really not here nor there. So let me ask you something. Let me ask you this question, because I think I can't continue like this, because you're just like flying all over the place right now.
I don't think I am.
What do you think about the 12 apostles? Did Peter exist? Paul exist? Are these real people?
Well, they don't appear in many places other than the Gospels. So you get the reference in Paul to John, James, and Peter, but we don't know much about them. Paul in 1 Corinthians 15 Peter is referred to outside of the 12.
All right.
Judas is apparently.
I don't want you to go into the nitty gritty of it. As I want to have like a more of a big picture discussion right now, because if you get into the nitty gritty, maybe we can do it next week.
Yeah.
I'll come back and give you all the references. Okay. Let me just try to get a big picture here, ballpark figure where you are, how you go about this. So what I want to know is who wrote the Bible then? Where did this knowledge that's in that New Testament? Who was the author of it?
What I can tell you is that the Gospels themselves are synonymous. They were not written by Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John.
Yeah, we know that
They're
it
written
says
in
according
Greek.
to.
Yes.
Yes. So they were written down by.
So they were written.
They were
decades
copies
and
of the original.
decades
They were
after
copies of the
fact.
original.
Right. Eyewitnesses, therefore, are non-existent for these accounts.
Okay.
This would help us understand why things are
right. Let's go to the
contradictory.
point. Okay, I understand your point. You're saying that these are anonymous. We don't know who these people are. Fine. So my question is still who wrote it, not who didn't write it. So you're telling me who didn't write it.
Yeah.
I'm not asking you who didn't write it. I'm asking you who wrote it.
I think, Christian communities probably with a very Hellenized and Romanized and Greco-Romanized sentiments and a hand would have written the gospel accounts.
No. Okay, look.
This is
No.
happening
You're
away
not going to
from
let you
Judea.
off that easy.
He wants names.
I want somebody's.
No, we don't
No.
know. It's
I have
true.
given you Jesus Christ as a name, as a person, and you have dismissed it. You're gonna have to. No.
They
I
are
told you
synonymous.
before. No, Christian, it doesn't work like that. You
don't know
don't
the
come with a
names.
huge claim and then say, I don't have any names. I just generalized. Oh, just there were some people
All I
did that.
need to-
No.
all I need
Don't
to
come
do-
in front of camera
all I need to
and
do
just like be a
very
buffoon like that.
massive
Like say, I'm
problems
going to
with the
deny this
historicity of
whole
Jesus is
historicity
tell
of
you
Jesus
that the gospel
and his
accounts
disciples and the
come way
Bible.
later.
But you know what? Where this come from?
So the Gospels,
Okay,
the
so are you
stories
going to
of the
look like that in front of the
Gospels
camera?
only appear in the Gospels, and they are second century
Christian,
creations.
again, I'm not asking
Okay.
you what didn't happen. I'm
First
asking you what
readers.
happened. So don't tell me what didn't happen.
I'm
Who
going
didn't
to-
write
I'm going
it?
to
Tell me
explain
who did.
To these good people here,
Tell me who did.
what is factual, what is true.
Give me the fact
according-
of who did this.
According to the record, right?
Yeah.
So the Gospels are written in the 2nd century. This is a full couple of generations after the events are supposed to have occurred.
So what about the Didache when it's from the 1st century and it
the
mentions
Didache isn't from the 1st century.
No?
It's very unlikely to be a...
which century is Didache from?
Most likely the 2nd. And the
Oh,
Didache is
and you have
is
any
a
proof of
sparse
that?
document.
Okay, how about like the early church fathers, like the 1st century, like Polycarp and all these guys? Were they all 1st century or were they 2nd century?
No,
Because
the-
they're writing
the
letters.
Didache is a
They've
fairly
been
sparse
quoting
document.
the text from the Bible, from the Gospels, in their letters. Polycarp, the other church fathers from the 1st century. So there is all this text is already from the 1st century. So
is
don't
hard
go
to-
to the
it's-
2nd
it's
century.
very
You're
hard
going to
to
have to
date.
deal with the 1st century first.
It's hard to date Polycarp. And again, Polycarp appears, again, not to really understand gospel history.
How?
Polycarp's martyrdom story is a fabrication. It's you can read it. It's a mythological tale, really.
All right. So again,
same
Christian,
motivation.
you know what? This thing is like not going anywhere right now. So I'm gonna have to ask you, please come back next week.
Didache, I can
Let's
find
have
some
this discussion because
information on the Didache
I'm
right
enjoying
now,
it
if you want.
because it's so. I think the public might have a laugh too. So this
sure,
would
sure.
be a good
This is
opportunity to
current
entertain
scholarship,
people and show
secular
the
historiography.
what kind of lengths people have to go through to deny Christianity. He's like the prime
it's easy
example
these days.
of what kind of stuff you have to go through to do this. So I want to give you another opportunity
Okay.
to redeem yourself.
All right.
All right. Let's do it next week.
Can I say very quickly, we don't know we know about the gospel authors through the way they write. We understand that they were heavily
Hellenized.
Hellenized,
Yeah, I
Romanized.
know what you're
right?
gonna say, bro. I
There are
really know what you're up to.
there's a mythological
Listen, you are telling me
psychology.
no, we don't. This is not these people. I'm not asking you whether it's these people. I'm asking you who are the people who wrote this down.
You're asking me to give you something I do not have.
Thank you.
What we can
Thank
say-
you. You just
if we are
came here
trying to prove
making a
Jesus
claim of
existed,
Jesus doesn't exist.
that
These
is
people don't
extremely
exist.
hard.
This is 2nd century. I asked you who wrote this thing down. Give me the name of the people Who did?
Why are you asking me this question?
Because you're denying the existence of this.
I know, yeah, I can deny the existence of Jesus and still
And not have the
know
responsibility.
who
Okay,
the gospel
great.
writers were.
So that's
We-
the way it
we
works.
know that
It's
they
like
weren't Matthew,
Islam.
Mark, Luke, and John.
Jesus didn't
know
die.
this.
It's like Islam. So you're a Muslim. Islam says Jesus didn't die on the cross. You ask
Yeah.
them, well, the history proves it. Well, no. Well, what happened? Well, we don't know. Who was on the cross? Well, we don't know. What happened?
You're
Did he die?
jumping-
No, we don't know.
you're
So
jumping
you're
the
doing
gun
exactly
massively.
the same thing.
You're jumping
But Bible
the
has
gun
changed.
here
The Muslims
massively.
say Bible has changed.
Yeah.
And who changed it? They don't know.
If
So you're doing the
in
same
a
exact
court
thing.
of law, if
Christian,
you're trying
you're
to
doing the same
establish a
exact
truth,
thing.
You don't have to then jump to who did the crime or who
No.
did the murder. If you're trying to prove someone didn't commit a murder, that's all you need to do in a court of law.
In the
After
court of
that,
law,
you can go after people who, if you're trying to prove the existence of Jesus, right? You look at the evidence for Jesus, and if that evidence is piss poor,
Okay.
and it is,
All right.
and it really is,
great. I like this.
Then-
I have a legal mind somehow. I don't know why, but people say I do my debates very legalistically. So when you go to the courtroom, then I'm going to bring you this. This is a case that's an appeal on a decision, what you're doing, because the decision is already given that Jesus existed. That's why I said historically this is proven.
That's circular
You are
argument.
coming and
That's a
appealing that
circular
decision and
argument.
saying it's wrong.
You can't
I
use
have
the Bible
evidence to
prove
prove
the
that it's
Bible,
wrong.
especially when
No,
it's
no,
so
no.
mythological.
Hold on. Let me
It's so
speak.
mythological.
Let me make my point. You came to the court. There is a case that decided. You're appealing that decision based on new evidence that you have that was not presented in the case. And you want to
Yes.
make a case.
Yes.
So now the burden of proof is on you
Oh no, that's
to
exactly
prove.
right. I'm absolutely okay with that.
Excuse me, sir. We are on the camera, sir. All right.
I'm absolutely okay with that. It's fine.
Okay, so
The-
please
the-
understand. If you go
when
into the
you-
courtroom,
when you poke
bring
holes-
the evidence. It's on the evidence is on you,
So
not on me,
it
to
is-
prove that my case again.
Yes.
My case is already there.
Yeah.
You're
So-
gonna appeal that and say
Four
you have the
people-
wrong evidence. I have the right evidence. You're gonna have to
So
present
four
that.
people who knew Jesus Christ, who are all together, who knew each other very well, disciples, right, do not give you such wildly differing accounts of the story of Jesus. They
Again,
don't get
this is the same
his
thing the
birth
Muslims
wrong.
say. Christian,
they
do you
don't-
have a Muslim argument? Do you have your
They don't
Gnostic
get his
argument?
birth,
Because this is a
date
Muslim argument you just
completely
gave
wrong.
me. This
They
is a
do
Muslim
get the miracle
argument.
stories completely out of whack. They don't
Listen,
add,
okay, they're wrong. Okay,
parables
for
or
the sake of
misparables
argument,
or lose them.
for the
They
sake of
don't
argument,
give you Jesus's death date
Christian
on
is
the
just
wrong
gonna
day.
talk over me.
As
Okay,
an
go ahead,
example of
Christian.
John.
So these are wrong.
Mark-
These gospels are
Mark's-
contradictory. You're right. Okay, let's assume that for
No,
your
that's a truth.
assume
That is true.
No, to you.
No, it is
To you.
true according to the Bible.
To me,
according to the New
this is a
Testament.
point of an argument. So as an argument, I'll assume that this is true for the sake of argument.
Revealed
Now
message.
tell me, who wrote this untrue gospel?
Which one?
Whichever
That's
one
it.
you're referring
These
to,
are
you're saying they're
second century
contradictory.
stories
Okay,
that
so
are now
who were the
coming
authors
together.
of these second century contradictory stories? Because if you're reading, listen to me very carefully. I'm going to give you a legal point here, okay?
Gnostic thinkers.
I'm trying to give you a legal point, so give me 2 minutes to make my point, okay? Now, when you are making something up, okay, 2 centuries after the fact, you have all the facts. You are going to have 4 accounts that are going to match exactly to each other because you are doing it after the fact. Okay? It's called hindsight is 2020, meaning that
No, not
what
necessarily.
has happened
We
now,
have competing-
if I write something now and I want to make sure that I explain
We have
there is no
competing-
contradiction. That means that it would be matching. So you're saying that it's written in the 2nd century by different authors, but they cannot. Were they all? Did they know each other? These
So
4
we have
authors. Were
the
they 4
facts
authors
at
of these
hand.
4 gospels, or were there one author who wrote the 4 gospels? Who wrote it?
There
First of
wasn't
all,
one-
you don't
there
know who
can't have
wrote
been
it.
One author. That's
What?
impossible, right? What we have is largely competing traditions, Christian traditions that are most likely competing with one another. And the harmonization, the attempt at trying to create a canonical 4 square gospel.
Listen, my
account,
friend,
right?
Christian, all I want to know is your version of the story. Give me your version. You
right,
said
I am
it's
trying.
from 2nd century, and I'm
yes.
asking the question,
Yeah.
who in the 2nd century,
Yeah.
where in the 2nd century was this done? Where and who wrote this 4 gospels?
Demanding names.
Between
names and circumstances.
Yeah, this is
who were
early-
these people?
early
Why would
to
they write
mid-
it? How did they write it?
Towards the end of the 2nd century. So between 110 and 160, it's likely that the Gospels.
What sect
bunch
were
of
they? Were they
bases.
Jews? Who were these people?
These are would be, we would assume, Christians, but they are Hellenized. There might be. I mean,
you
there
use
are
these,
lots of
throw
things
these
going
terms,
on.
bro. Hellenized. They were Christians.
Yes,
were
and
they
this
Gnostics?
is why they
were
have
they Gnostics?
virgin birth accounts. This is why we have miracle accounts that actually mirror Greco-Roman miracle workers. This is why resurrection theology is very pagan. Romulus went through the same stuff. There's many gods that,
Yeah. I've heard that.
Titus
Have you
healed,
watched a movie called Zeitgeist?
Titus
it
healed
talks
the guy
quite a
with the
bit in
withered
detail
hand.
about this. This came out in
Titus
2006.
Vespasian.
So you were very young. I watched it and I was like, wow, how come I missed all this stuff when Jesus was
Zeitgeist is not a particularly good documentary.
Well,
and you're right.
but
You're right.
that was the first. But now they might have improved on that story
and they
because
have
it's like
improved
you
massively.
making up a new story, but then when you get demolished, then you come next day
I'm not
with a
being-
better
I'm not
story.
getting
So
demolished.
you are.
not
So
gonna get
so
demolished,
no, you haven't given any proof of your claims, have you?
I haven't been able to. We don't know. The best scholars in the world at the moment cannot tell you who the names of the people that wrote the Gospels.
Look. You can't go to the court and say, sir, this is not what happened. And then the court says what happened, and you say, I don't know. But I know that this didn't happen.
If you've got evidence of that, you can.
So,
You can make out that case with evidence.
Of what?
Well, all I need to establish
story
is
is
that the
So established story is
At the moment,
false.
Yeah.
Okay. So you have no burden of proof to show what actually happened.
No, not in
No.
the same detail.
Not with the same detail. Okay. All right. So he's got a legal point here. A very smart guy. So he's saying that in a legal case, to destroy the case, you can just say that this information is incorrect. So he's made that point. Okay, good.
there are no records in the 1st century. If you discount Josephus, which you can do now, we have very good knowledge now that you can cite that is 2014 onwards, that is better than so much of the other information that came before this. People have been doubting Josephus for a long time, his reference. But in the 1st century, we have no knowledge of Christians, let alone Jesus Christ. Nothing that is actually datable to the 1st century at all. Jesus was a person who walked on water. Jesus was a person who healed the dead. He raised 2 or 3 people from the grave. At his death, the world went dark for 3 hours, and earthquakes and then zombies came out of Jerusalem's graveyards and started walking around. That was not attested in history at the time, and it wouldn't be until the
Right.
2nd century with the
Right.
Gospel and Acts as well. And Acts, St. Paul, his letters, the 4 Gospel accounts and Acts differ on certain stories. All of them differ.
All right, Christian.
you have
You have made
massive
your point.
problems with-
You have made
with
your point.
historicity.
And may I get a chance to rebuttal some of this? Yeah.
please.
Okay. All right. Now you made a point as well that you see we have to prove that this is not the case, right? And he's making that point. So can I rebuttal this? I should get an opportunity, right? So here's the thing. Historically, was there or was there not an earthquake at the time of the death of Jesus in that, and was that historically attested to, yes or no?
No, I don't know the finer details, but I don't think there was, no.
Okay, so if there was, that would prove your case wrong, would it not?
It would prove that there was an earthquake at the time.
That was mentioned in the Bible, and and the sky was darkened and all that kind of stuff, right?
In the Bible, sure.
No.
In-
I'm not
in
talking about
secular
Bible.
accounts.
I'm secular account.
In secular accounts, yes. So
Right.
Thales mentions an eclipse at around the 30s, right? But it was actually seen in Upper Turkey, and it was they were talking about 3 minutes.
Was
of
there
an
an
eclipse
earthquake?
of a
Yes or
partial
no?
account.
Was there an earthquake? Yes or
Well, no,
no?
the eclipse would be the best example
Okay,
of how the world went dark.
right. Well, was
They
there
use
also an
account-
earthquake
it's
at the
Can't
simultaneously?
be used.
Was simultaneously an earthquake in Israel? Yes or no?
I don't think so.
There is accounts of that also.
Where is the account?
Like I said, you don't have all
I
the
will
details right
fact
now.
check it.
I didn't have all the
I'll fact
details.
check it for next
I'll fact check it and bring it to you. And now I'll give you one more thing. Now here's another one. It has been found that in China there was the Chinese king wrote about Jesus how did that happen at the time of the death of Jesus? Saying something like, the God-man has died for the sins of the world today. And this was written right at the time of Jesus' death.
So I would love to find out about that.
Yeah, this
look
is
at it
something
and
that
find
is
out when
also
it was written.
historical.
What we find
Right.
is some Christians, some people, some secular historians and so on, they write about Jesus in the 180s, say, CE, around where Christians are
I'm
living.
not talking about
Problem
no,
with-
I'm not talking
these
about
are not
that.
eyewitness accounts. They
Yeah,
are
that's
2
right.
or
That
3
is
or 4
that is even more
generations away
miraculous.
from the
That's the
history.
point. That's the point, Christian. Don't you see
So-
it? The guy who's thousands of miles away.
Yeah,
Now-
you can't use that to prove someone existed.
No.
If
What I
people
want to
believe in
no,
a
no, no.
thing-
If it's in the secular history, I need an explanation of this guy's historical account. If he's writing in his annals
And there
at the
is
time
none.
of this
There is
happening,
nothing there.
sorry.
There is nothing there. I mean,
Nothing
the
there.
the first secular account we get is in Pliny the Younger. And he says only that there were Christians at around 111, 112. There are Christians. He doesn't know them. He's never met them before. It's in a letter to Trajan, and he's asking Trajan, like, what do we do with these Christians? They're pretty annoying, and they're boisterous and stubborn, and I'm having to interrogate them here, and they have some really strange superstitions, like extravagant beliefs. Like, what are these people? Now, do you think that if Nero had been persecuting Christians only a few, like six decades before, and that he had put them up on spikes or whatever, he'd be feeding them to the lions in the not the Colosseum because it hasn't been built yet. Do you think that he wouldn't have known who Christians were? And do you think that he wouldn't have had a very decent legal prescription for how to deal with Christians?
It wasn't legalized, so it was underground.
No,
So
it
there
would have been
wouldn't.
legalized if Nero had decided to persecute Christians. That would have definitely been legalized, and people would know very well what to do with Christians. Yes.
So what you're trying to say to me
the
is
elder,
that
Pliny the Elder,
Yeah.
Pliny the Younger's adopted father.
adopted father, or he was the adopted
Father was
son?
Pliny the Elder.
Okay.
Son Pliny the Younger.
Okay.
He was an extremely powerful man. He'd spent much time in Judea. His son, who he loved very dearly, this guy loved his father. Apparently, Pliny the Elder never said anything about Christians because he would have known about Christians. Pliny the Elder and Pliny the Younger were two of the most elite and smart, capable people in the empire at the time.
That doesn't prove anything. Is this your proof? Is this your proof?
Proof that he didn't understand.
No,
who
this
Christians
does
were.
not prove. This is like when I say something like this,
That's in the
you'll be like,
second
oh, that doesn't prove anything. And now I'm going to say that to you, it doesn't prove nothing.
think
You haven't
it
proved
does. I
anything
think it does.
by just saying that this guy should have known. Should have known is not evidence. That means that he knew.
No, you would expect him
please,
to have known
please.
very,
No, expecting,
very well.
no, I don't expect him to know it.
Can I-
No, I
I'm
don't.
gonna- I'm
No, I
going
don't.
to,
Sorry, I don't expect him to know it. It's not
This is
something
very
that was.
useful for me because I'm going to be able to pick up on a lot of this.
Yeah,
and
let's
help
do it again so we
people
can
to-
actually.
yeah,
I'll bring
I'd
you.
love to.
Yeah, because I haven't. I've looked. See, the thing is, I researched stuff like 5 years ago, and then I have a conversation after 5. I can't recollect
No,
all the
I have
details.
exactly the same problem.
Okay, that's what
my
happens.
mind is a
I
sieve.
didn't know that you were going to go through all of this stuff.
This is
Well, I was
recounting from
thinking,
memory.
what I started this interview with you was
Yeah.
to find out which sect of Gnosticism do you follow and why, and tell me a little bit about that.
I'm
That's
a-
what I was curious to know, because you said there are many Gnostic sects and this
I'm
and
a
that.
free agent at the moment, I've got to say. I appreciate the power of the Christ within, and love and truth, and that spirit that arrives in people. You might be a Buddhist, you might be Hindu. You could
What
be
is a
Christian,
Buddhist?
you
Oh,
could
let me
be a
ask you
Hopi
something.
Indian,
Can I
it
ask you
doesn't
something?
matter.
Can I ask you? Let me give me a chance to
Yeah.
make this point. What is
Sure.
a Buddhist?
A Buddhist is someone who believes in Buddhism, who believes in Buddha, who believes
Is he
in Buddha
believe in
Dharma.
Buddha, or does he believe in Buddha consciousness?
There are some Buddhists who don't believe in an historical Buddha. Sure.
Oh, there are. I wasn't aware of that.
There are some. I believe.
Oh, there are some. Okay, but let's say the majority. Let's not go to the cults, because a lot of religions have small cults.
These are powerful.
They're called like the lunatics or whatever. We're not talking about the lunatics in like different cults, you know. So let's talk about the majority. Do the majority of Buddhists think that he was a Buddha? This is a Buddha consciousness, or was there a Buddha that gave them these lessons in life and stuff that they should follow?
I think that the majority of the times, what we're looking at is people who were either originally gods from the skies, or gods in people's imaginations that have been euhemerized, brought down and given human characteristics and given a human story. Osiris, Romulus again, there are Apollo, I believe, many pagan deities.
My point,
were
Christian,
given human attributes.
is that Buddha is a real man, so is Jesus. There is no Buddha consciousness. There is no such thing as a Jesus consciousness or Christ consciousness. These are made up words from people like you and your belief system.
Through time.
Nobody has ever mentioned anything about. Show me in the Bible, anywhere it says anything about Jesus consciousness.
St. Paul talks about it all the time. He says his Christ comes from Scripture and revelation.
Okay.
So his revelation of the Christ within, the indwelling Spirit, the mystery, the secret of the mystery. The great secret is Christ in you. Luke, that's a Lucan quote.
So does he not say the Christ
John is all
crucified?
over this.
Does he not say Christ crucified, Paul?
He does, yes.
All right, so
And
which
it's up to
was
us
that
to figure out
crucified?
what crucifixion really means in this context, I think.
What do you mean cross crucified? Wait a minute, man. Are you gonna? Okay, so that's what I
This
mean.
is where we can go. I think we should go next week.
Yeah, let's go next week. All right. Thank you, guys.
What's it called?
he wants to promote-
Gnostics.
All right.
Shit, I've forgotten the name of my 16.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, guys.
Revealed the Gnosis.
Christ is Lord. Gnosticism
Christ is
is
Lord.
definitely,
Gnosticism is awesome.
definitely.
Christ is Lord, I believe this, but he's in here.
But he's not a consciousness. You can't have a consciousness in your heart. You need to have Christ's spirit in your
Jesus is
heart.
pointing to the heart all the time.
Yeah. Well, you don't believe that Jesus existed. How could he point if he didn't exist? Sorry, bro. It doesn't work like that. You can't have it both ways. Stop trying to have it
You
both
can.
ways.
That's one of the mysteries.
No, you can't have it both ways. Sorry. That's what the devil told you in the Garden of Eden. You can eat this fruit and live. He didn't tell you you're going to die, which is what he's telling you. So don't listen to Gnosticism from the Garden of Eden till today. It's the same lie. Did God say? He's keep telling you, did the Bible say?
I got knowledge.
No, it said. And you didn't listen, so now you have to just make up your own Bible. Go ahead.
Right, it's really good.
Next time.
It's really cool, man.